The human research vessel Erebus floated silently above the green clouds of the alien world Vereen Prime. Inside the ship, tension filled the air. It was humanity's first official contact with the Vereen Empire. A species known for beauty, precision and pride, they looked almost human. But their skin shimmered faintly like moonlight, and their eyes glowed with silver fire. Lieutenant Harris stood at the briefing table, his hands stiff at his sides. He was chosen to represent the human delegation because of his calm nature and sharp mind. But right now he felt none of that calm. Across from him stood Commander Lyra of the Vereen, tall and graceful, her uniform fitting her like flowing armor. Her movements were elegant, controlled, and cold, like she was carved from light itself. The translator unit hummed quietly between them. It connected minds, allowing thoughts to be shared in perfect understanding. A single stray thought could be translated into speech if the user wasn't careful, and Harris knew that very well. As Lyra spoke about the terms of cooperation, Harris tried to focus, but his tired mind wandered for just a second. He looked at her, the sharp lines of her face, the faint glow of her skin, the way her presence filled the room, and a thought slipped through before he could stop it. "She's beautiful," his mind whispered. The translator beeped once, then echoed his thought aloud in the middle of the silent room. "She's beautiful." The words hung in the air like a spark in a fuel chamber. Every Vereen officer froze. Every human turned pale. Commander Lyra stopped speaking, her silver eyes slowly turning toward him. The entire room held its breath. Harris's heart sank. He hadn't meant to say it. It wasn't even a real sentence. Just a thought, but now it was out there, echoing through the diplomatic chamber. He swallowed hard, trying to explain. "Commander Lyra, It was a slip." The translator, she raised her hand, silencing him. Her expression was unreadable. But there was no anger. Instead, she studied him for a long, strange moment. Then, very softly, she said, "Human honesty is unexpected." And for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. The crew exchanged confused looks. The Vereen delegates whispered among themselves. No one knew whether she was amused or offended, but the meeting continued. Colder and quieter than before. When it ended, Harris rushed back to his quarters. He buried his face in his hands, groaning. He had just embarrassed the entire human delegation. He could already imagine the headlines. Human officer insults alien commander with primitive desire. He didn't even mean it like that. It was just a passing thought. A moment of awe, nothing more. Hours passed, and the ship grew quiet, but Harris couldn't sleep. He replayed the scene over and over. Lyra's faint smile haunted him. Why did she smile like that? Why didn't she react with anger or disgust? A soft chime broke the silence. A message blinked on his terminal. "Commander Lyra requests your presence in Observation Deck 3. His stomach twisted. Was she going to confront him privately? Or demand an apology? Still, he couldn't refuse. He straightened his uniform and made his way down the dim corridors of Erebus. The observation deck was empty except for her, standing by the glass window that showed the swirling green storms of Vereen Prime. Her reflection shimmered in the glass, her eyes catching the stars. "Lieutenant Harris," she said softly, "you humans are full of surprises." He hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I didn't mean any disrespect." "Commander," he said quickly, "the translator malfunctioned." It didn't malfunction," she interrupted, her voice calm. "It revealed truth." Harris blinked, unsure if she was angry or amused. Lyra turned to face him, her expression serious now. "Among my kind, thoughts are controlled, filtered before they ever reach others," she explained. "But you humans, you let them slip raw and honest." She took a step closer. "In your culture, that is seen as a mistake," she said. "But in mine, it is curiosity." Her gaze softened, and for a brief second, the cold commander seemed almost human. Then she added, "Still, such words spoken in the presence of the council would be dangerous." "I understand," Harris said quietly. She studied him for another moment, then looked back at the stars. "You may go, Lieutenant," she said at last, "but know this. Once a thought is spoken in the link, it can never be taken back." Harris nodded. Feeling both relieved and unsettled as he left the deck, he glanced back once. Lyra was still there, her hand against the glass. Watching the storms below, her lips moved faintly. But he couldn't hear what she said later. The crew whispered again. "Why did she call him to the deck?" One asked, "What did they talk about?" said another. Harris said nothing, but his mind was restless. He couldn't forget her voice, or that strange smile, and somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater, and far more dangerous. Than the next morning, the Erebus floated in quiet orbit above Vereen Prime. The crew moved carefully through the halls, whispering about the night before. Everyone knew what had happened. A single human thought had been broadcast in front of the alien delegation, and yet instead of punishment, the alien commander had smiled. Lieutenant Harris tried to ignore the stares. He focused on his duties, on reports, on anything that would make him forget. But he couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lyra's face reflected against the stars, her faint smile burning into his thoughts. He was reviewing data at his station when a voice came through the intercom. "Lieutenant Harris, report to Commander Lyra's quarters." Every head in the room turned toward him. He felt his pulse jump. "Again?" whispered Ensign Vega beside him. "Man, either she's going to kill you or promote you." Harris forced a smile and made his way down the corridor. The doors to Lyra's quarters opened silently, revealing a room filled with soft blue light and strange flowing symbols that pulsed on the walls. Lyra stood near a circular table, her hands clasped behind her back. "Lieutenant," she said calmly. "Thank you for coming." He nodded, trying to appear composed. "I assumed you wished to discuss the incident from yesterday," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "In a way," she replied. "But not as you expect." She motioned toward the table. On it sat a small glowing sphere connected to a neural interface. "This," she said, "is a Vereen artifact known as a truth nexus." Harris frowned. "And what does it do?" "It allows two minds to communicate without barriers," she explained. "No filters, no translator, no lies." His throat went dry. "You want me to—" "Yes," she interrupted. "I am invoking the truth exchange, an ancient Vereen tradition between two individuals seeking understanding." He hesitated. "I don't think my superiors would approve," he said carefully. "Your superiors will never know," Lyra replied quietly. "This is between us." Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with something fierce. Curiosity. "Challenge, maybe even trust, Commander. Why?" he asked. She stepped closer. "Because your uncontrolled thought revealed more about you than hours of diplomacy ever could," she said. "I want to know why humans think the way they do, without control, without shields." Harris stared at the glowing sphere. If he accepted, his thoughts would be open to her, and hers to him. No secrets, no walls. It could be dangerous, maybe even forbidden. But part of him wanted to understand her too. This alien woman who seemed so cold, yet had smiled at his mistake. He took a deep breath and said, "I'll do it." Lyra nodded once, a faint look of approval crossing her face. "Place your hand on the sphere," she instructed. As his palm touched the surface, warmth spread through his skin. A surge of light wrapped around both of them. He felt a strange pull, like gravity shifting. Then suddenly, he could hear her, not her voice, but her mind. "You are nervous," her thoughts whispered. He jumped slightly. "You can hear me?" "Yes," she replied, her mental tone calm. "And you can hear me as well." He felt her curiosity brushing against his mind. Not intrusive, just searching. He tried to focus his thoughts, but every emotion came through. Confusion, embarrassment, fascination. She saw everything, but then her own emotions began to slip through. He felt a wave of something. "Sad, old, heavy, you feel alone," he thought without meaning to. Her eyes widened, and for a second her mental wall flickered. "My species abandoned emotion long ago," she said softly. "We believed it made us weak. But you—" She paused. "Your thought about me." It was pure, not manipulation, not strategy. It was simply real. He didn't know what to say. Their connection deepened, and flashes of memory passed between them. Her home world. Endless silver cities under twin suns, her training, her loneliness in return. She saw his earth, laughter, chaos, music, the messy beauty of human life. Then something strange happened. The sphere pulsed red as if reacting to their emotions. Alarms flickered on Lyra's console. "This shouldn't happen," she murmured. Pulling her hand back, the link broke, but a faint spark of light remained between their palms. Fading slowly, they stared at each other in silence, both breathing heavily. "What was that?" Harris asked. Lyra looked shaken, her calm mask gone. "The Nexus reacted to emotion," she said quietly. "But that's impossible. Vereen links have been emotionless for centuries." She stepped closer. her expression unreadable. "You changed something. Harris," she whispered. "Or perhaps you reminded us what we once were." He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to apologize again, but another part of him felt connected. Like something between them had crossed the line of culture, of species, of understanding. Lyra turned away, looking out the viewport at the storming planet below. "When the Council hears of this, they will not be pleased," she said. "Why? What could they fear from emotion?" Harris asked. She looked back at him, eyes glowing faintly. "Because emotion once nearly destroyed our empire," she said. "And now, thanks to you, it might awaken again." The words hung in the air like thunder. Harris stood frozen, realization washing over him. His simple mistake, a single human thought spoken aloud, had started something far beyond diplomacy, something that could change two civilizations forever. Days passed since the truth exchange, but neither Harris nor Lyra could forget what had happened. The neural link between them had been temporary, or at least, that's what they believed. But strange things started to happen aboard the Erebus. Whenever Lyra entered a room, Harris could feel it before she appeared. Whenever he felt nervous, the lights in her quarters flickered. It was as if some invisible thread connected their minds, still alive, still pulsing. The human scientist noticed it too. Dr. Ramos, the chief neurologist, called Harris into the lab. "Lieutenant, your brainwave scans are irregular," she said, pointing at the monitor. "They're syncing with an alien frequency." Harris frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said carefully, "your mind might still be linked to Commander Lyra's." He stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. The connection ended days ago." Dr. Ramos sighed. "It should have, but somehow it didn't." Later that evening, he found Lyra in the observation deck again, staring at the storms of Vereen Prime. "Commander," he said softly, "we need to talk." She turned, her silver eyes reflecting the stars. "I know," she said. "I can feel your thoughts pulling at mine." He froze. "So it's not just me." "No," she replied. "Our bond hasn't faded. It's evolving." Before he could respond, the intercom beeped. "Lieutenant Harris, Commander Lyra. Report to the science bay immediately." In the lab, Dr. Ramos and the Vereen scientist, Dralven, stood beside a large chamber lined with glowing conduits. "We need to test the nature of this bond," Dralven said, his tone cautious. "If this connection can affect biofields, it may have military or scientific value." Lyra frowned. "You mean to experiment on us?" "Not experiment," Ramos said quickly. "Observe." Harris looked between them, then nodded. "If this helps us understand what's happening, I'll do it." Lyra hesitated, then placed her hand on the scanner. "Begin," she said firmly as the chamber sealed around them. Light filled the room. Sensors hummed, the neural interfaces activated, and suddenly the bond flared alive again. Harris gasped as a wave of energy ran through him. Emotion, memory, and sensation flooding his mind. He saw flashes of Lyra's childhood, the sterile halls of the Vereen Academy, her instructors telling her to erase emotion. He saw her face when she first saw Earth through the holoscreens, a hint of longing, curiosity, and envy. Lyra staggered, clutching her chest. She could feel his memories too. His laughter on Earth, his mother's voice, the scent of rain, the warmth of human touch. Her heart raced, her control slipping. This is too strong," she gasped. Dr. Ramos shouted through the intercom. "We're picking up massive energy spikes. Their vitals are merging." The lights flickered, and every monitor began showing identical brainwave patterns for both of them. "They're in perfect sync." Dralven exclaimed. "Shut it down before it overloads," Ramos yelled, but before anyone could act, the power surged. A blinding pulse of light exploded from the chamber, shaking the ship. When the lights returned, Harris and Lyra were kneeling on the floor, breathing heavily, the chamber walls scorched with strange glowing symbols. "What just happened?" Harris asked. Ramos stared at the readings, her voice trembling. "Your combined neural field. It emitted energy beyond any known human or Vereen spectrum." Dralven looked horrified. "This bond is no longer mental, it's physical, energetic." Lyra's hands trembled as she looked at Harris. "You've done something impossible," she whispered. "Our minds have merged, and our species are not even compatible." The ship's AI interrupted, its tone urgent. "Warning, unknown resonance wave detected aboard Erebus. Source localized to human officer and Varine commander interaction. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Lyra stood tall, her composure returning. "We will contain it," she said, but deep down, she wasn't sure if it could be contained at all. That night, Harris sat in his quarters. Unable to sleep, every few minutes he felt her. A faint echo in his mind. Her thoughts brushing against his own. She was awake too, standing alone in her room, staring at her hands as faint lines of light danced under her skin. This shouldn't be possible, she thought, but it feels right. Her thoughts slipped through unintentionally, and Harris heard them. He closed his eyes, replying softly in his mind. "We need to understand it before it destroys us." There was silence for a moment, then a quiet response. "Or before it changes everything the next day?" Captain Reynolds called them both to the command deck. "The Varine Council has been informed of the anomaly," he said grimly. "They're sending a vessel to investigate." Harris's stomach tightened. Lyra's expression darkened. "They won't see this as science," she said quietly. "They'll see it as contamination," the captain sighed. "Then you'd better figure out how to control it before they arrive." As they left the bridge, Harris glanced at Lyra. "We started something neither of us understands," he said. She looked back at him, her expression soft but firm. "Then we'll face it together," she said, and as she spoke, a faint light flickered between them again, invisible to everyone else but burning bright within both of them. Neither of them knew it yet. But this was only the beginning of something that would shake the foundations of two civilizations. The message from the Varine High Council arrived like a thunderclap across the Erebus. It was transmitted through every major channel, stamped with the seal of the Galactic Conquered. The order was clear. Commander Lyra was to report immediately, and the human officer known as Lieutenant Harris was to be placed under observation. No questions, no appeals, only command. Captain Reynolds gathered the senior officers in the briefing room. His face was pale, his voice tense. "The Varine Council claims the experiment created a forbidden resonance," he said. "Something that could disrupt neural stability across species." Dr. Ramos slammed her tablet on the table. "That's ridiculous. It was a neural accident, not a weapon." Lyra stood silently by the viewport, her silver eyes fixed on the storming planet below. She finally spoke, her tone quiet but firm. "The Council doesn't see it as an accident. Doctor, they see it as heresy." Everyone fell silent. Harris looked at her, his pulse quickening. "Heresy?" he repeated. Lyra nodded slowly. "Long ago, before our empire's rise, there were experiments to merge emotion and logic. They ended in chaos," she said. "The Council banned all emotional bonding through neural technology. And now we've done the same." Captain Reynolds rubbed his temples. "Their fleet will be here within the hour," he said. "They're sending 3 diplomatic cruisers and 1 enforcement ship." The room went cold. Everyone knew what that meant. Enforcement didn't mean negotiation. It meant control. When the meeting ended, Harris found Lyra alone in the observation deck. Again, she stood with her back to him, the stars casting pale light on her armor. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "This is my fault." She turned slightly, her expression unreadable. "No," she said. "It was fate." He frowned. "Fate?" "Yes," she whispered. "Perhaps the universe wanted someone to remind us what we lost." A faint hum filled the air as the Erebus sensors detected the approaching ships. Lyra's wrist console flickered, showing the symbol of the Varine Council. Her communication link opened automatically, and the voice of High Chancellor Tareth echoed through the room, cold and commanding. "Commander Lyra of the Varine Empire," the voice said. "You have violated Directive 41, emotional corruption through foreign neural contact." Lyra stood tall, her voice steady. "With respect, Chancellor, the event was unplanned," she said. "The human officer acted without intent, and I took control of the situation." But Tareth's voice cut her off. "You will return to Varine Prime for judgment, and the human will be detained for analysis." Harris stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. "He's not your subject," Captain Reynolds said sharply. "This is a human ship, under human command." Tareth's voice turned cold. "Then humanity will face consequences as well." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving silence behind. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, the first visible crack in her calm. "They'll destroy the bond," she said quietly. "They'll erase all evidence it ever existed." Harris took a deep breath. "Then we can't let them." Moments later, the alarm blared. "Varine vessels have entered orbit. the AI announced. "They are locking tractor fields on the Erebus." The ship shook as beams of energy surrounded it. Holding it still, Captain Reynolds barked orders. "Shields up, evasive maneuvers." But the Varine ships didn't fire, they were simply waiting, like predators circling before the strike. In the chaos, Lyra turned to Harris, her voice urgent. "There's one chance," she said. "We can channel the resonance. Use the bond as a power surge to disable their field." Harris blinked. "You can control it?" "No," she admitted, "but I can guide it, with your help." They ran to the chamber where the experiment first took place. The same glowing sphere pulsed faintly on the table. Dr. Ramos tried to stop them. "If you overload it again, it could kill you both." Lyra looked back at her, eyes glowing brighter than before. "It might save everyone instead," she said. Harris placed his hand on the sphere beside hers. Their minds connected instantly, the bond flaring like fire. He felt her fear, her determination, her sorrow, and beneath it all a single thought whispered through the link. "I would rather die with truth than live with silence." The resonance burst through the chamber, sending waves of light across the ship. Every console flickered, every system froze. Outside, the Varine tractor beams shattered like glass. The Erebus broke free, spinning as blue lightning danced along its hull. The Varine council ships staggered, their systems overloaded by the energy pulse. For a moment, silence returned. Then, through the intercom, Captain Reynolds' voice trembled. "You did it. We're free." But Lyra collapsed, her body trembling, her skin flickering with faint light. Harris caught her, panic rising. "Lyra, stay with me!" Her voice was weak but calm. "The link is burning out," she whispered. "My people will see this as rebellion." Harris shook his head. "They'll see it as proof. Proof that humanity isn't what they think." Her hand brushed his face, her eyes softening. "Then promise me, don't let them erase what we created." Before he could answer, her eyes closed and the light faded from her skin. Harris held her tightly as alarms blared again. Outside, the Council's fleet was regrouping, but the bond between them had already changed something deep within the galaxy, something the Council could never undo. The Erebus drifted through orbit like a wounded giant, its engines silent, its crew breathless. The energy surge from the resonance had saved them, but it had also drained the ship. Smoke lingered in the corridors, lights flickered weakly, and silence filled the air where alarms once screamed. Lieutenant Harris sat beside the medical pod, watching as Commander Lyra's still form floated in stasis light. Her pulse was faint but steady. Dr. Ramos stood nearby, her face pale but hopeful. "She's alive," Ramos said softly. "Barely, but alive," Harris nodded slowly, unable to look away. "She did it," he whispered. "She saved everyone." The door slid open and Captain Reynolds stepped in. "The Council ships have withdrawn," he said, disbelief in his tone. "They're regrouping somewhere beyond the atmosphere. No transmissions, no threats, just silence." Harris frowned. "Why would they back off?" Reynolds handed him a data pad. "Because whatever you two unleashed out there, it scared them." Harris looked at the readings, his eyes widening. A wave of energy was spreading from their position, invisible to the eye but measurable across multiple frequencies. It was pulsing outward into the void. Dr. Ramos spoke softly, awe in her voice, that the resonance, it didn't just disable their ships. It's still expanding, stabilizing space around it, almost like it's rewriting the fabric of energy itself. Reynolds folded his arms. "Whatever it is, the Varine Council won't admit it publicly," he said. "But they'll never forget it." Hours later, when the ship's power began to return, Lyra stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Glowing faintly with silver light, Harris leaned closer, his voice soft. "You're safe," he said. She looked at him weakly, her lips curving into a faint smile. "I can feel it," she whispered. "The bond hasn't broken." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if words were too fragile for the weight of what had happened. Finally, Lyra's voice broke the silence. "The Council will call this treason," she said. "They will demand my return." Harris shook his head. "You don't have to go." Her gaze softened. "Yes, I do," she said quietly. "If I run, they'll call it proof that humanity corrupted me." He clenched his fists, frustration burning inside. "You risked your life for them, for us. And they still want to destroy you." Lyra reached out, placing a trembling hand on his arm. "They fear what they cannot control," she said. "But one day they will understand." She stood slowly, still weak, but her eyes glowed brighter now. "I will return to the council," she said. "Not as a soldier, but as a witness." Harris felt his throat tighten. "If they hurt you—" "They won't," she interrupted gently, "because they've already seen what happens when they try to cage truth." The crew gathered in the docking bay as a small shuttle was prepared for departure. Lyra stood at the ramp, her uniform torn but her posture proud. Captain Reynolds gave a respectful nod. "You'll always have a place among us." "Commander," he said. Lyra inclined her head. "Among you, I found what my kind lost, emotion, courage, and imperfection," she said softly. "Those are your greatest strengths." She turned to Harris, their eyes meeting for the last time. No words were needed. The bond between them pulsed once more, bright, alive, unbroken. Then, without another sound, she stepped into the shuttle and it lifted away, disappearing into the silver light of the stars. The Erebus watched as her ship vanished beyond the atmosphere. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Dr. Ramos whispered, "Do you think she'll make it?" Harris stared into the void. "She's stronger than any of us," he said quietly. "She'll make them see." Weeks passed and reports began to spread across the galactic channels. Unconfirmed rumors spoke of a Vereen commander who defied the council, of a woman who stood before the High Chancellor and spoke of unity, of truth born from a forbidden bond. Some said the council silenced her. Others said she vanished, leaving behind nothing but a pulse of light that echoed through space. One evening, as the Erebus sailed through the dark between stars, the ship's AI detected a signal. It was faint, rhythmic, and carried no origin tag. Harris arrived in the control room as the crew played it through the speakers. It was a soft hum, melodic, harmonic, almost human. Dr. Ramos frowned. "What is that?" Harris smiled faintly, recognizing it instantly. "It's her heartbeat," he whispered. "Still resonating." The crew fell silent, listening to the sound. The hum spread through the decks, calm and peaceful. No one could explain it scientifically, but everyone who heard it felt something stir inside them. Courage, empathy, hope. From that day, the event became known across the stars as the Shattered Silence. The day emotion returned to the Vereen. The day a single careless human thought sparked a revolution that no one could erase. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, among distant suns and drifting echoes, Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of an unmarked ship. Looking out into the void, her voice was quiet, but filled with warmth as she whispered, "Humanity taught us truth." She closed her eyes, feeling the faint pull of the bond still alive in her mind, "And I will never let them silence it again."